Continuing our series for Growmark on nutrient management, today I am speaking with John Musser with Stephenson Service Company. And John, first of all, tell me a little bit about Stephenson Service Company and what you do.
John Musser here. I work for Stephenson Service Company. Been here 24 years in my role here. Had multiple roles as a crop specialist here and plant manager here, and now pretty much a business technology person. Do some changes that we had in the last recent change over some personnel. But I've been working with growers for 35 years in the fertilizer business. Started in 1980 and been in the business ever since. So here at Stephenson, we're basically a cooperative affiliated with the Growmark system and cover 2 counties here in northwest Illinois. So I've been in my present location about 16 years doing what I do over here in Joe Davis County.
When it comes to developing and improving nutrient management plans for your growers, your clients, what are the first steps that you take when you want to do that with them?
My first direction is to make sure that we first build something that's agronomically sound, and that usually starts out with conversation about and around soil testing information to ensure that we have adequate agronomic levels and amounts to grow a crop, whether it's corn, soybeans, alfalfa, or anything else that kind of goes with the trade territory here in northwest Illinois. But usually starts agronomically there with that soil testing. Our general recommendations follow a 3 to 4 year cycle in that soil test. We build test levels up to and along with maintenance recommendations based on pretty much the U of I recommendations in terms of where the test levels need to be to grow a corn crop based on what's going on right now. So those nutrient levels, as far as the first management plan, is to ensure that we can accommodate and grow the growing corn crop or bean crop with adequate levels in terms of particular P and K on the soil test readings. Followed that up with yield goals for particular corn on nitrogen management.
How has your focus on good nutrient management encouraged your growers to improve their environmental stewardship?
Back to that original scenario, I mean, we've got growers over all those years that generally have never really done anything outside of a bad program or inside the perfect program, but their scenario as far as environmentally, they've usually not, over all the years I've watched and done this, we've never seen guys really overdo that environmental piece of over-application to a level that was, extremely outside the box. What we've seen is that growers as a whole have a challenge understanding what it takes to ensure that they don't lose what they put on at the end of the day, because if they lose it, they don't have it anymore. And to get them to understand that nutrient management piece of keeping what they put on is probably the first environmental stewardship program that exists from the first conservation soil programs that existed, because as I've told them for many years and continue to tell them, if we lose our soils, we really lose our nutrients, we lose our value, and we lose our ability to grow good corn crops. And without good corn crops, the over-application or the application products aren't taken up and not used, and so really they waste their money. And if you can focus on that piece of nutrient management to ensure that they keep what they put on, and they're always in favor of keeping and maintaining what they put on so that they don't lose it. And I've pretty much seen that for all the years of watching them change their practices slightly in terms of trying to ensure that they don't over-apply, but yet ensure that it's agronomically sound. And as we go through this lower corn price right now, I think we're back to that, understanding of improvement across the board in environmental and in stewardship of keeping what we put on, because if we don't put it on, we can't grow it. If we put too much on, we probably don't utilize the benefit of it. So I think they're encouraged on their own economically to make sure that they do that for the most part, Cindy.
Well, as you said, John, you've been in this business for a long time, over 30 years. You've been a certified crop advisor for some 20 years now.
Yep.
But how has your work changed over the years?
Well, I think if you look in the last 20 years particular, but in the last 10, we really spent a lot of time talking about keeping what we put on. From years gone by, it was about trying to build or increase our levels to an acceptable level. When you go back into the 80s, we were really working on agronomic build levels to where we had to get test levels to a level from, days gone by when we got out of livestock and we started to use commercial fertilizers. We didn't have the shorter rotations and other things that kind of gave us our yields that we got at those time frames. Today, it's about trying to really educate the grower on understanding that he has to maintain that level without over applying. And I think we've been doing GPS work since '94, and I think through that change there in itself of understanding that we can really watch change and understand change, and the numbers really do work that they seen happen a long, long time ago. They're still in force today, and they really do work. They may be tweaked slightly on a given grower's farm, but they really do work. And I think if you look at the last 10, we've educated our growers to say, pay attention to this piece. It does work. And if you short it, you're going to be short. And there's really no reason to over-apply because we can see that it doesn't change, or it changes very little once we've achieved our level of need without over-applying. So I think that's probably the educational piece in terms of the workload of what we do versus just let's go put some more on, that was maybe done, particularly maybe in the 50s, 60s, where a little more was good and a lot more was better. But as we went through, kind of the 70s and 80s, it changed, and now we're really understanding how to manage that input better, and just like you said earlier, environmentally or agronomically, both, to where we don't have to over-apply in order to get what we want to achieve. And there's other operations that can achieve that through maybe less that we're starting to learn on now that's probably different even from 10 years ago.
Well, you pretty much covered this next question, but just to summarize, if you're talking to growers about nutrient management, what are the main issues that you stress with them?
My first one goes back to that original one, is that I think we need to really know what we have out there at the end of the day. And in soil testing history across the whole Midwest, just participate and take part in that soil testing operation at the end of the day. It's like going to the doctor at the end of the day. You still may not follow it to the level that is perfect, but at least you know where your level's at and you can start to manage your input. If we don't know that, we're really weak on that. Having done some work and continue to do work in management, which is something that's out there today, again, not having really over-applied anything in terms of yield goal potentials on given pieces of dirt, but understanding what's happening with our nitrogen management piece is probably the next main point that our growers really have to get their hands around and start to work on, because it's a missing piece within, I think, most agronomic scenarios where we can't control the water on our given pieces of normal, farm ground in the Midwest. It's just one of those things we have to understand what happens to our soils. And just like losing dirt, if they put conservation plans into place to conserve soil and do those kind of things, we need to put, environmental stewardship ideas, placement, processes, and timing all into the next piece, which is one of our biggest inputs, is nitrogen management that we have to do every year consistently. And we just got to try and figure out the weather and how that fits into their farming operation, because I feel that there's probably not a given farm that can probably repeat the same operation consistently due to hybrid management, tillage operation, and planting dates. They may not have to and may not do the same things that their neighbor's doing, but it's still the same practice of understanding how it works on their farm and how their operation functions underneath their management skills, because we could be regulated or told how much we could put on no matter how he farms. And I think that's the part that we have to encourage those guys. And one of the main points they have to understand is that you can still do it the way you want to do it with an understanding of how the product works.
As we look ahead, you talked about some of the technologies that have helped growers do a better job with nutrient management, like GPS and soil mapping and things like that. But what about like information technologies and innovations and data management? Will that help growers moving ahead do a better job with nutrient management?
I think once they can understand what data can do for them, I believe that they will start to manage data better. Right now, they're in a collection mode of trying to understand what it really is. They have it in the biggest share of all the combines and the biggest share of all the planters. They're collecting it, but because it's a moving, constant target that can vary based on how much quality and time they put into collecting data, is really the challenge that they have right now. Is that there's no consistent data collection tool that everybody's using to start to gather some consistency in what a grower does. Even though we all collect yield data, the yield data is collected out of different kind of conversations, and it's collected out of different processes, and it's collected out of different fields, and there's different varieties and tillage and other operations that play factors into those processes. And I think right now, again, the grower's got to really collect some data on his own farm over a period of time and be willing to share it confidentially for the most part, but to let somebody help understand and follow through with some of that so that he can really kind of dig down into the cause and effect that why something's happening, because that data collection will probably be part of the determination of whether or not that particular piece of soil can or can't do what they always hoped it could do. We all want to go 150 mile an hour, but you may not be able to do that in the little bitty Subaru, versus somebody else that has something that can go that fast. And I think that's their challenge right now. They all want to go that fast, and I think data as a whole is really time-consuming, and growers are challenged by the time they spend on that particular management tool.
All right, excellent. John, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not really, other than I think as the future goes forward, I think growers are still going to migrate to best management practices as a whole, even though it may not look that way. I believe at the end of the day they're really doing proper things out there day in and day out. As I've said earlier, being in the business a long time, is that I've never seen somebody go in and say, well, I want to just waste some money today. Growers have never been that way, and I don't think they'll ever be that way in terms of, input costs, in terms of doing things that they don't see a value to. It's just determining how to improve on what we do with that value system. And I think that's your challenge of today for anybody that's in our business in agriculture, is how to maintain and get more value out of what we do put on, because we may not see things come down in terms of inputs. We just may see things stay status quo, and we just got to get better at them. And price kind of fixes a lot of things, whether it's too low or too high. And we may get into that a little faster than we want to after this last few years.
All right. Thank you very much. That's John Musser with Stephenson Service Company in Illinois, and I'm Cindy Zimmerman.